These are the solutions for the study guide for Chapter 8, Section 3, Chapter 8, Section 4 quiz. And let's take a look at our first problem. So it's asking us to find the volume of the sphere. We're supposed to round the answer to the nearest tenth. So the first thing I see is when I look at the sphere, I see that we've got a diameter. And so I need to take that diameter and I need to cut that in half to find out what the radius is. So our radius is going to end up being half of 30, and that makes 15. So 15 inches is what I'm going to end up using for the radius. And then I'm going to look at the formula. So my formula is this: volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. So that's why I wanted to find that radius, because the volume formula has the radius in it. And so I go ahead and take that radius of 15, and I substitute into the volume formula. So I'm taking 4/3 and pi, and then 15 to the third power. And so when I go ahead and do this work, I end up with 4,500 pi. And so from there, I'll go ahead and figure out what that is using the pi button on the calculator. It gives me this. I end up with 14,137 and 2/10. And so that's going to end up being rounded to the nearest tenth. That would be my answer, inches to the third power. So 14,137 and 2/10 inches to the third power. If you use 3.14 for pi, then we'll end up with a little different answer. We'd end up with 14,130. And that would be the answer that you'd end up seeing there. So either one would be fine. Using the pi button will give you a little bit more accurate answers. So here it says find the radius of the sphere with a volume of 36 pi. So we're going to take the volume formula, 4/3 pi r cubed, substituting into the formula. I've got 36 pi, that's the volume, and I need to solve for r to the third power. So the way I'm going to end up doing it is I'm going to use the calculator's fraction function, and I'm going to divide by the 4/3 pi on both sides. And so what that's going to end up doing is it's going to cancel out the pi term. 36 divided by 4/3 is the same thing as saying 36 over 1 multiplied by the reciprocal. And then I can end up doing some cross-canceling, and multiplying across gives me 27 equals r to the third power. So I take the cubic root of that. Taking the cubic root will cancel out the cube symbol and leave me with 3. So 3 is the radius, and these are in centimeters. And so that would be my answer. Taking a look at the composite figure here, I've got a solid in which we've got a cylinder and 2 hemispheres. So the 2 hemispheres will make a total of 1 sphere. And so I'm going to find the volume of that one sphere, which is 4/3 pi r cubed. And then I'm going to add on the cylinder. And so the volume of the cylinder is pi r squared times by the height. So the difference here is that you see how we have the distance going all the way across. So the radius of the hemisphere here, it doesn't matter where you go to, as long as you start from the center and go to the curve of the sphere, we end up with 3 centimeters. So the distance here is 3 centimeters. So right here we have 3. And over here from the center, we also have 3 centimeters. And so if I take those 3 centimeters away from the total distance of 12 centimeters, that would end up giving me the height of the cylinder. So the height of the cylinder is going to be 12 minus 6, which is just 6. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute my numbers in there. 4/3 pi times by 3 to the third power. And then I have plus the cylinder, which is going to end up being pi times by 3 squared, because the radius is of the cylinder is the same as the sphere, times by 6, which is the height of the cylinder. And so when I do this work, this gives me 27, so I have 4/3 times by 27 pi. I got the 27 by doing 3 to the third. Doing some cross-canceling here gives me 36 pi. On this side, multiplying here, I end up getting 54 pi altogether. 9 times 6 gives me 54. So when I add these two together, 54 pi and 36 pi, That gives me 90 pi altogether. And so now I can go ahead and use the pi button on the calculator, and that gives me 282 7/10. And so they want me to, I got that decimal in the wrong spot there, so let me fix that. So 282 7/10. And they want me to round to the nearest whole number, so that's going to end up being 283. And these are centimeters to the third power. So let's take a look at the next three problems. On these problems, they're asking us to find the missing dimensions of this solid here. So it says the solids are similar, and so that means we can set up proportions to solve for the missing sides. So two sides that correspond are the 5 and the 7.5, and I'm going to set that equal to, and then I've got 13 and C correspond. So since the 13 and the 5 go together, I'm going to put the 13 on top and the C on the bottom. Cross multiplying gives me 5C equals, and then multiplying the 13 by 7.5 gives me 97.5. So when I do that division, dividing by 5, that gives me 19.5 centimeters. That's the value of C. So to find the next one, I'm going to do H next. I'm going to set up the same sort of formula. 5 is to 7.5, as 6 is to H. And so multiplying diagonally gives me 5H, and then 7.5 times by 6. Right there, that gives me 45. And so doing that division, you can see how H is 9 centimeters. And the last one here, I'm going to set up the same ratio. 5 is to 7.5, and then 12 is to B. So 12 and B kind of go along with each other. They're corresponding sides. So 12 over B. So I've got 5B equals, and then the 7.5 times by 12. And that gives me 90 when I multiply those numbers. Dividing 5 into 90 gives me 18. So 18 meters. Again, I'm getting that by just doing that division. Dividing by 5 on both sides gives me those 18. And then these are not meters, but centimeters. Actually, no, I'm sorry, these are meters. And so let me fix that real quick. So we'll change all of these to just meters. So moving on to the next problem, we end up seeing we've got again the same sort of thing. The pyramids are similar. This time we want to find the surface area. So we're going to take the dimensions and write those as a ratio, corresponding dimensions. 6 is to 10. I'm going to reduce that fraction though, divide by 2, and that gives me 3 over 5. So I've got 3/5, but since I'm dealing with an area are square units. Square units. And so since I'm dealing with area, I need to take this ratio and square it. And so with a distance, it was just to the first power. See, meters is to the first power, so I didn't have to square or do anything to that ratio. But for this one I do, because it's area. And so it says that the area of the larger figure is 600. So put that in the bottom. I'm trying to find the area of the smaller figure. So you square first. You get 9/25 equals A over 600. Multiplying diagonally gives me 5,400 equals 25A. And then I just have to divide by 25, and that will give me my answer. So I end up getting 200, and let's see here, I've got 216, and these are cubic feet in this case here. So 215 cubic feet. Let's take a look at the next one. So on this one, we are trying to find the volume of the tank. And again, it says that the two are similar dimensions. The new tank are twice the original of the old tank. So since it says the dimensions, that means all of them. So that means we know that they are similar figures. So I'm going to do a ratio of original to new. And so it says the new tank is twice the original. So since I did original over new, that means that if the original was 1, the new tank would be twice that number. It would be 2. And so if I set it up this way, I have to be consistent. So I'm going to do, it says the original tank was 2,000, so I'm going to put 2,000 there. And then I'm going to find the volume of the new tank. The difference here is since we're dealing with volume, they want to know volume. Volume is cubic units. cubic units. And so if we're dealing with cubic units, like over here we're dealing with square units, so we have to square the ratio. Here, cubic units means we have to cube that ratio. And so that's the difference. With area, you have square units, so you square the ratio. Cubic units, so we have to cube the ratio. So we ended up with 1/8 equals 2,000 over V. So we're multiplying diagonally. 8 times 2 makes 16. So we'd have 16,000. That would be the volume of that new tank. Let's take a look at our last three problems we see here. It says to draw the figure, and we're going to reflect it over the y-axis. So 2, 2, we'll start with M there. 2, 3, that's N, and then 3, 3 is P. So P, N, and this is M. But before I write that, I want to make sure I don't write right over things. So that's M, and this is Q right here. Okay, so there's our figure. And so what we want to do now is take that figure and we want to reflect it over the y-axis. So when we reflect over the y-axis, we're just going to count the spaces to the y-axis and go on the other side. So this is N, and then P would be right here, M would be right here. So again, count the spaces, 2 spaces from the y-axis, 2 spaces over. So 4 spaces over, so 4 spaces over. So that's going to end up being Q. So that's what the reflected image is. And then it says 3 units, or 2 units right, 3 units down. So 2 right, 3 down. And so we have a figure point there. And then 2 right, 3 down. 2 right, and 3 down. 2 right, and 3 down. So then we can go ahead and draw that image in there. And so this would be our final one. And so this was N double prime, P double prime. This was M double prime and Q double prime. So it says write the rule. So the rule would start off with XY, but then we reflected. So reflection, you notice how the Y values stay the same. The X values are the part that switch sign. So it's just Y values are the same height, but just the X values change sign because they go to the other side of the y-axis. And then we had to do a translation. So translation said to go 2 right. So you have to take the X value, add 2, and then 3 down. So take the Y value and go down 3. So for this next problem, it says that we're supposed to solve the formula for the height. And then it says, what is the height? If the area is 100 square feet, the length of the smaller base is 10, and the length of the larger base is 15. So let's start off with our formula. And we're supposed to get h by itself. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by dividing by b1 plus b2. I'm going to move that over to the other side. So do an opposite operation. Since it's being multiplied, even though there's addition going on, the parentheses say that it's being multiplied by 1/2 h. So now I've got a over b1 plus b2 equals 1/2 h. So now I'm going to multiply by that reciprocal, 2 over 1. That'll cancel out the 1/2. Do the same thing on this side, and I'm left with 2a over b1 plus b2. And that's going to end up being my height. So now I've solved for the height, so I've done the first part. Now they're asking me for the height. If I am given the area of 100, so I substitute 100 in for a, and base 1 is 10, base 2 is 15. And so I just multiply. So I got 200 over, this makes 25. So my answer is going to end up being 8 feet when I do that division. So for the last one here, it says that Al earns $15 an hour and receives a $50 bonus. So Al's equation is this. Maybe I'll say 15h. H is the number of dollars, or the dollars, we'll say, dollars per hour. So I'm going to change that real quick. We'll say dollars. Oops, H is number of hours. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and fix that one more time. So H is the number of hours equals hours. And so 15H plus 50. So that's Al's equation. And so we can even say maybe, how about C equals the dollars. I'm going to say C equals dollars. And so then it says the graph shows Ed's earnings. So Ed's earnings, well, he starts at 0, so he has no money to start with. He doesn't earn that $50 bonus. And his rate is, if we go up 75 over 3, his rate is 75 over 3h. So that reduces down to, this is Ed's again, and his is, if we go ahead and do that division, 3 into 75 is $25 per hour. So that's Ed's. And so now they're asking, explain which manager has the higher hourly wage. Well, the rate of change is the hourly wage. So we would say Ed has the higher hourly wage at $25 per hour compared to Al, who earns $15 per hour. So then it says, after how many hours will they make the same? So I'm going to take the two amounts, 15h plus 50, and set it equal to 25h. So I go ahead and do some subtraction here. And that gives me 50 equals 10h. Dividing by 10 gives me 50, or 5 equals h. So it looks like 5 hours is the amount of time it's going to take them to earn the same. So those are the types of problems you're going to see on this week's test. Good luck.